Naboth, for those who don't know, just tell us a little bit more about 7Ages in terms of, I guess, the company, but also importantly, the strategy here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So 7Ages is a new company in the real estate world. We actually come from a background of trying to solve a social problem, which is how do we deal with a rapidly aging population here in the Netherlands, across Europe and worldwide as well. And what we quickly found is that to deal with that social problem, in other words, to have the kind of social impact that we've been talking about earlier today, you need to deal with the real estate issue. And real estate kind of is part of the solution to the social change that is happening to global aging. So we are heavily, I would call it impact-centric, not impact-driven, not ESG focused, but impact-centric. And what I mean by that is that we're not about that last slide in the presentation that says, oh, and by the way, we're also focused on ESG. In fact, when we did one of our first ever investor presentations, we forgot to put an ESG slide in because ESG was all over. ESG is really at the core of what we do, and that's very much the investment strategy.
And in terms of, you mentioned there the real estate side of that. Is this all new development? Is it regeneration? What's the focus?
So it's in theory it's both. Most of what we do is renovation and redoing existing buildings. And there are several reasons for that. An important one is there is just a lot of really good real estate around already. And by repurposing it for this generation, we think that we can have the kind of impact that we want to have socially, because a lot of those buildings are in exactly the kinds of locations, downtown, beautiful areas outside of the cities, etc., where we want to be anyway and where the guests want to be. But also from an environmental perspective, because what we can do by then refurbishing those buildings is we can actually make them better from a climate perspective, from a sustainability perspective.
And there's obviously a big focus here on senior living, but are you also then looking at that sort of crossover into the healthcare side, the more care element?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And we are definitely not right now focused on sort of the heavy care scale of that. We do focus on light levels of care, low levels of care, but that's really where we kind of stop. There's a vast number of people, a really large proportion of the aging population who don't really need that much care. They just need that little bit of care that normally you actually get at home, right? A lot of people actually stay at home longer these days. And they're taken care of by a family member or by a nurse who comes around a couple of times a week or once a day, but they don't need full-time care at a very high level the way you would see in a full-on nursing home or in a hospital.
Great, really interesting to catch up. Thanks very much.
Great, wonderful, thank you, and good to speak to you again.